I wanted to see if simplifying a painting down to one color would make values easier to understand. One of the things I struggle with most in painting is actually seeing values correctly. So I thought if I removed color completely and focused on just one hue, maybe it would make value relationships clearer. But even after simplifying everything, I still managed to mess it up. This painting was also a little bit personal. It's a portrait of my boyfriend's late dog's eye that I painted for him as a Valentine's Day gift. Now, I was under some time constraints, so I wanted to finish it quickly, but I also wanted to use it as an opportunity to practice something I struggle with, which is value. Because the more I paint, the more I realize that value is doing most of the heavy lifting. Color really matters, but value is what actually creates the structure and the depth. So instead of using my normal palette, I simplified everything down to a single color. Then I took the reference photo and posterized it into about 4 or 5 distinct value groups. I can't remember now, I think it was 5. And the idea was to remove as many decisions as possible. If there are only a few values to choose from, it should theoretically be easier to see what's happening. At least that was the plan. Even with everything simplified, I still hit a snag. There was a section where I completely misread the value I was looking at. What I thought was a mid-tone was actually much darker. And once that value went down in the wrong place, it threw off the structure of the painting. I kept hitting these roadblocks, like, why is this not looking right? What's the problem? So I had to stop and really examine my reference versus what I was painting, and I realized that it was time for a resketch. But what surprised me was that I actually made the same mistake again. I misinterpreted the value a second time, and yes, I was looking very closely at my reference. And honestly, this didn't shock me too much because this is something I've always struggled with. It's just that I'm usually calculating what actual color I need and the value of it and the relationship to the other values around it at the same time. And it's such a whirlwind that I don't end up learning very much, I feel. This is something I've always struggled with. Even when I squint at a reference, even when I simplify what I'm seeing, sometimes my brain still reads the value incorrectly. And it is common when you're learning art. This is very common. A lot of the stuff that you're learning is just how to see correctly, like how to really see what you're looking at. And I think that's something that's easy to underestimate when you're learning to paint. Seeing value accurately is not automatic. It's something your eye has to learn over time. You can simplify your palette, you can simplify your reference by posterizing it or just squinting at it, but at the end of the day, you're still training your eye to recognize those relationships. The upside to this exercise is that the mistake was a lot easier to fix because there were only 4 to 5 values. I could quickly see where things were going wrong and correct it upon analyzation. If I had been working with my full palette and dozens of color mixtures, the error might have been much harder to spot. So I'm not sure this exercise completely solved my value seeing problem, but it definitely made the issue more obvious. And sometimes that's the real point of doing studies like this. Not to get a perfect painting, but to train your eye a little more each time. A lot of what I do as an artist is just experimenting like this, trying things, making mistakes, and figuring out what works along the way. Because honestly, I didn't start art until later in life, and I only went to school for an associate's. So a lot of my process is still about learning by doing. But if there's one thing this painting really reinforced for me, it's that value really is the backbone of realism, and learning to see it is clearly going to be a lifelong process.